I call the Kennesaw County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Let's all stand and recite the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome everybody. Welcome to any viewers that might be out here watching today's proceedings. We have a modest agenda today, but we should be done well before noon. Depends upon how much of a conversation we have regarding insurance, so which is the last thing on the agenda for today. So the first thing we're going to deal with today is the consent agenda. You received the board packet. Is there anything you wish to pull from the consent agenda to consider on its own merit? Hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll so move.
Commissioner Gardner moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, so today we welcome the St. John's Roadrunners 4-H Club, and you have a presentation and a request for a letter of support. So if you'd come up to the podium. And for the record, and for those who are viewing, as you take turns going up, and state your name and who you represent. So just, yeah, you got to speak a little close.
Hello, my name is Rachel Mitchell, and I am one of our local extension educators for 4-H Youth Development here in Candy, Ohio. So some of you might know me from our county extension committee meetings. And I helped run the 4-H program in our county, which is a youth development program where we work on leadership and learning. And we work with our county community clubs, which do a number of different things in teaching youth leadership skills and working on projects throughout the year that they showcase typically at the county fair, which is what people think of when they think of 4-H a lot of the time. But our county clubs, our community clubs also do service projects as part of their meeting throughout the year. And so today we're featuring the St. John's Roadrunners and one of the service projects that they were working on. We have a couple of members from our St. John's Club that I'll have introduce themselves here, and then they'll tell you a little bit about some of the great work that they've been doing with some grant money that they were able to secure.
Thank you very much for that background.
My name is Megan Gillis. I am our club leader for the St. John's Roadrunners 4-H Club. We are primarily centered in the Wilmer community, but do have members in Spicer and also head down to Bird Island and then over to Candy, Ohio. So we have a great club. We have one of our focuses is on community pride. The last time we were in front of you was in 2020. We had completed a Little Free Library project, and we currently continue to take care of those 7 Little Free Libraries. And as I was talking with Corky, he wanted me to mention that how important it was that we were able to do those libraries, because right after we did that application for that award, COVID happened. And as you might know, our schools shut down, our public libraries shut down, but our Little Free Library National Association felt it was still good that we keep the libraries open because we were not having person-to-person contact with those libraries. And so during those times, our libraries were still giving out thousands of books. So in just the 3 months of tracking that we did this past summer, we're giving out 1,500 books in our community of children and adult books. So we continue to serve in the community. This past year, as part of our community pride projects, we did bingo at Copperleaf. We painted the food stand at the county fairgrounds so it looks nice and shiny and beautiful again. And we are also now working on our food shelf grant that we received, and Adriana will talk about that.
Thank you.
All right, so my name is Adriana Bale, and I'm the president of the St. John's Roadrunners 4-H Club. And I'd first like to say thank you for your willingness to support my club's application for the Association of Minnesota Counties 4-H Community Leadership Award. So we started our project by applying for a grant through Compeer Financial, and we decided to use the $750 to do 3 different projects with the Candy, Ohio County Food Shelf. The first was the signs. So we add Spanish translations. We and elevated our curbside pickup sign instead of their sandwich board. And then our second was creating homeless kits. So even though homeless residents may receive food, they may have nothing to cook it with. So we packed can openers, utensils, plates, and then just some basic toiletries. And our third was our senior kits. So seniors who often live outside of assisted living are often forgotten during the holiday season. So we gave them a reusable bag, an activity, and then one consumable item for them to use. And then my club went on a few different shopping trips to the Dollar Tree and then to Walmart. And during our December meeting, we packed around 80 kits in total, 20 homeless kits and 60 senior kits. Many members were involved, including the shopping, the packing, and one member, Ariana Gillis, even sewed reusable bags for the senior kits. We delivered the homeless kits to the food shelf, and they will distribute them throughout the year as they see fit. And then with the senior kits, we joined the Wilmer Community Center and the Nutrition Assistance Program for seniors for their monthly distribution. The St. John's Road Runners 4-H Club and I would like to continue to support the Candy Ojai County Food Shelf in future years. If we win this cash award, we will expand our project with the food shelf. I'd like to thank you again for your letter of support for this award.
Well, thank you very much. First thing, would you spell your, don't run away because there may be some questions for you. Would you spell your last name for us?
Behl, B-E-H-L.
B-E-H-L.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And does anybody have any questions for Adriana? Am I saying that right, Adriana? I have a question. So you listed a lot of things that you did with seniors, with the food. Where did the funds come for that?
So we got a grant from Compier Financial.
That was that $750
Yep,
grant?
$750.
Okay. And is there another grant associated with the possibility of achieving this award?
Yes, so if we win the AMC's 4-H Community Leadership Award, it comes with recognition along with a $500 grant.
So you accomplished a lot with that $750. So congratulations and thank you for that. And it would be really great if we go to the legislative conference in another month and get to recognize one of our own. So I'm pretty sure you'd have the support of all of us here, and certainly you do of the chairs. So Megan, did you have something else you'd like to add?
We do have some pictures if you would like to see.
Sure, I'll put them on.
We can pass
You-
them.
If you put them down,
There you go.
the public can see it that way. So we'll put it, okay, now center them. And I'll just put them up there.
And then turn it around 100.
There you go. Oh, wow.
So those are the homeless kits after they are all packed. This is our shopping trip, one of our shopping trips. Another shopping trip there. These were the bags that were sewn by Ariana.
Upside
Oh,
down.
sorry. Okay, and then these are the senior kits. We put them all in reusable bags, so hopefully they can use those for future shopping trips. This is our distribution. It's done at the Wilmer Community Center for the Nutrition Assistance Program for seniors. And we were able to be there. They did not want too many people there to assist because they want privacy for the people that are receiving the food. And we put a little note in with the bags that said they were, how the gifts were prepared for them, so.
Any other questions or comments from the,
I just have one comment. As a former 4-H'er many moons ago, I just want to thank you for all the effort you've done for this, and it's great to see such enthusiasm for young people, and it's great that you can do that. I hope you can spread it to other citizens in our community and county, so thank you.
thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you for all of the effort that you put, particularly the emphasis that you placed on our homeless population. Right now, it's a really difficult winter for them, and I know that one of the things that homeless citizens need right now more than anything else is clean, dry socks. That's one of the things that may or may not have been in your kit, but if anyone's out there thinking about helping out, with efforts like this, certainly I should think that you'd be able to help out through the food shelf to help enhance this, and potentially also Family Promise of Candy, Ohio County, who are working specifically with those populations. Thank you so much for all of that effort.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would be very proud to have the opportunity to make the motion to approve the 2023 Association of Minnesota Counties 4-H Community Leadership Award Letter of Support.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any further discussion?
Roger.
Commissioner Anderson.
I guess the one thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is maybe for the other clubs, but I mean, I think we have to take advantage of all the opportunities we can like this, because there's always some funds out there that aren't being utilized, and I think that we need to try and encourage everybody to do these projects and put in the effort that you guys have done for these projects. I think it's a great way to enhance our community, so thank you guys very much.
Very good.
I just want to say thanks to the leadership of Megan and the team. Without your leadership, the kids don't have the support they need to do their job.
So, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations and best of luck at the AMC conference.
Do you want the letter right away? I'll go make a copy.
In fact, I bet that'll be on the board.
Yeah.
All right. Next up on the agenda, Gary Gear with the landfill payment, final payment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Gary Gear, Candido County Environmental Services Director, here before you this morning just for the final pay request for the 2022 landfill construction project, primarily a C&D final cover, and then some infrastructure within the landfill was the majority of the project and what it entailed. And in accordance with the contract in place, the final payment is county board approved, and ECAD, our engineering firm that oversees the project, as well as staff, are recommending approval of the final payment for a total of $272,080.23. And with that, staff would make that recommendation to you.
So you heard the recommendation from Mr. Gear. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we make the final payment.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves to make the final payment at the landfill. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? I would just ask, we have a project starting this summer. Is it this summer too, the fence?
Correct. That is correct. That I should be, I believe, in February next month, coming with that notification of the project and
Bid letting?
Bid letting, correct.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have something we need to sign?
I do not.
All right. Ms. Lippert, Public Health Adult Safety Survey.
Morning, Jenny.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Jenny Lippert, Candido County Health and Human Services Director. Today, I'm just here to give you a little update and ask for some support to move forward with a regional survey. So every 5 years, the Minnesota Department of Health requires local public health departments to complete a community health assessment. A community health assessment identifies and describes factors that affect the health of the community and the factors that determine available resources to address those factors. A community health board or another lead agency collects, analyzes, and begins to use the data as we then prioritize what these issues look like for our community. A large part of a community health assessment involves gathering and analyzing different data sources. We have historically done 2 other adult health surveys. Most recently, one was done in 2015, and then prior to that in 2010, in coordination with other regional public health agencies. In 2010, we considered this a Southwest, South Central adult health survey, and that was
a survey that looked at nutrition, physical activity, and tobacco use of residents living in 19 counties in southwest, south central Minnesota. During this survey time, we used Wilder Research Foundation to conduct the survey on our behalf, and that was done between April and July of 2010. In 2015, we did a similar survey for our community. However, we scaled back and we did not include Blue Earth County as a part of our regional public health entities. But again, it was very similar. We also used the contracted vendor of Wilder Research Foundation to analyze and help us conduct this survey. The adult health survey is only one avenue that we get information to utilize for our community health assessment. But again, it provides us really concrete data about our community as far as what does physical activity use look like for folks that live in Candido County, how about substance use, drinking tobacco, smoking, some of those things, mental health and mental well-being, which I know will be a big focus this time around, on top of post-COVID trends. How are people doing now after the pandemic? And then we also incorporate some nutrition-specific data that we're hoping to gather from that survey. Really, the survey helps us tell a story of how our adults in Candido County are doing health-wise. And again, it helps us as public health identify which are our top priorities or issues we should be focusing on to have a healthier and safer environment for folks that live here. So we have already started to work on our next community health assessment cycle. That community health assessment will be due to the Minnesota Department of Health the end of 2024. When we pulled our budget together this summer, we were not anticipating doing any type of an adult health survey regionally this year. We were anticipating to do it next year. However, some of our other regional folks got together a couple months ago and really want to push getting a survey out right now so we can utilize that data as we pull information together for next year. Otherwise, we wouldn't really have good new data for this next cycle, and we would have to use data for the following 5 years. So this wouldn't be budgeted. However, we do have the use of our COVID grant that we would pull some dollars from, but there still will be some remaining dollars that would need to come from our public health budget that wasn't in the actual budget for this current year. So my ask is that I have support to move forward. Again, we're looking to do this regionally. We're going to do this with Renville County, Countryside Public Health, Des Moines Valley Health and Human Services, Nobles County, and Southwest Health and Human Services. We're looking to distribute 1,600 surveys to Candy, Ohio County, and those will be distributed in multiple languages. They will go out in Somali, Spanish, Korean, and English. We are looking to utilize the Wilder Foundation again to help us distribute, pull together the surveys, then they take all the responses and analyze the data for us, and then we as Candy County Renville Community Health Board can use that data as we pull together our community health assessment and final presentation that is submitted next year to the Minnesota Department of Health.
Very good. There was a lot to unpack there, and I'm not sure I captured it all as you were going along. Larry, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, Ms. Lippert came to me and asked, we had a conversation about this, and with our neighboring counties doing this now, it only makes sense for us to jump a year ahead and do it at the same time that our neighbors are doing it. If you do it as a region, it really gives you a better feel of everything that's going on. We're not doing it as an island, we're doing it as a whole. And I think one of the things that makes us a great county is that we work well with our neighboring counties. And as you do it as a whole, you just get better data. And so you'll have the funds to figure how to pay up the difference that doesn't cover from the COVID dollars. The funds will be there, and you'll be good to do it now.
Did we hear a number for that?
So we're still working on that, as some of the other public health agencies have some additional funds that they might be able to incorporate and spread those dollars out to other counties. But we're thinking roughly on a high end, maybe $10,000, somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000 for Candido County's portion.
All right, thank you.
On the high end.
I don't know who was first here.
No, I answered my question. Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jenny, I take it this is essentially the Shack Southwest Southwest region that is participating in this. And doing this survey and doing that data, how does that maybe interrelate with some of the 21st century modernization efforts for the public health system across the entire state? How does this inform that?
I would say based on the questions that we're going to be asking will help us identify again what those current trends are in Kandiyohi County that then we can incorporate into continual data, which again is that 21st century, that's the kind of push, is really continuing to constantly look at data, not waiting every 5 years. So that will give us an opportunity to gauge at public health what are the biggest areas and the most impact that we can make. And then we, on a smaller scale, could send out surveys or ask questions at different events and different vendor booths that we are a part of at Public Health to try to bring that forward. But I would say the data piece and continually looking at data on a constant basis versus waiting every 5 years is what we will be looking at.
And this may help in the end determine what those base expectations and services are that are expected to be able to be provided across the entire state, so that it doesn't matter who you are or what your zip code is. Anybody in the state of Minnesota can access this base set of healthcare, public health opportunities.
Yes, I would think that that will be very beneficial with doing this survey.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Other questions? And to kind of follow up on Commissioner Gardner's question is, and that's how the data will be used to determine what is it, where the needs are out there. You mentioned adult, covers a pretty broad spectrum. Is that anybody over the age of 21 up to death, or is it seniors? Is it?
Yes, so it's 21 and older. Again, Wilder will use a mechanism that they do to then disperse this to, again, it's only 1,600 surveys. And the reason that we're only looking at the adult population is because we already have the student survey that is done. PACT 4 is a big part of that. And again, that goes out regionally. And we just got that data a couple months ago. So we already have children taken care of. So it's really the adult portion. And we've done a number just locally. Downstairs, we've done some post-COVID surveys, but this really will be on a much larger scale. And again, when we're able to get it translated in the multiple languages, we hope to get some really good data with 1,600 surveys.
Did you have a follow-up question, Commissioner?
I would just wish to make a motion to approve the request by staff.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve the,
Mr. Chair, I'll second it.
and Commissioner Berg seconds. It was Commissioner Gardner who moved. Further discussion? I have a couple. The 1,600, is that in the region or is that in Kandiyohi County?
That's just Kandiyohi County. We will get 1,600 surveys for our county.
And I don't know how they're going to do this, but will there be an effort to, in terms of demographics, so that they don't all go to, say, people over 75 or people between 21 and 40 or whatever? They have an ability to do a good cross-section and representation of the demographics of the county.
Yes, and I would say that's why it's a little more costly, because we're going with the Wilder Foundation, and this is what they do. We've had success in 2010 when they did the survey for us, and 2015, that we all felt strongly we needed to go with them again. They've been very good to work with, and they do have mechanisms that they look at the demographics and zip code areas and the number of people per city versus township versus county, and that's how they have a mechanism to distribute those. And I also believe that they will be sent via mail, postage mail, but then there also will be a QR code that then they can generate that if they're have an easier time with some type of QR code or barcode that they can scan.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, it's just, I think it's just good business to have good data to provide our services, and it'd be dollars well spent moving forward with this.
Yeah, I just to follow up on that comment, I had the opportunity to visit United Healthcare and Optum during the annual conference, and the information that they have at their fingertips is absolutely incredible. And I think that information helps guide public health policy and even private health policy. So, any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
All right, next up, we have a resolution 2023-5, extension of the local water plan. Mr. Van Dyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Eric Van Dyken, Candioi County Zoning Administrator. Today I have a kind of a routine request a little bit. You may be aware, or you're probably remembering that we're kind of in the process of shifting our water planning from a political boundary to watershed boundaries. Candioi County has 4 major watersheds. As we complete those watershed water management plans, they will take the place of our previous water plan that was adopted in 2013, valid to 2023. However, as we transition, we have right now 2 major watersheds completed, our North Fork and our Hawk Creek. We are in process on the Chippewa and the South Fork of the Crow River. Because of that, the Board of Water and Soil Resources, otherwise known as Bowser, is asking us to extend the effective date of our local water management plan. That would normally expire again in June 4th of 2023. We're trying to get ahead of the game here a little bit. So they're requesting to us to extend it, and then we in turn request to them, who has the authority to extend it. So the resolution has the effect of saying, essentially, a lot of planning is going on. Please extend for 2 years, which was the recommendation of our local Bowser Board Conservationist to request 2-year extension. So that is the effect of the resolution in front of you.
Thank you, Eric. I'll entertain a motion on the resolution, and then we'll have a discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move Resolution 2023-5.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves 2023-5. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Berg seconds. I hate a vacuum of silence. So, discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, do you have any idea, we have several watershed districts in our county, and so it's really understandable that we haven't got them all completed yet. Do you know the rest of the state? I would think this is pretty common that everybody hasn't completed all their watershed plans anyway at this point in time.
Yeah, I'd honestly have a hard time giving you the complete picture across the state. Every year, they're handing out more planning grants. And I don't know the percentage completed across the state, but I'm guessing we're probably approaching about 50% or somewhere statewide that are either complete or well along the way. We're in the position where it won't be super long, a year plus, and we'll be completely covered in all 4 of our major watershed districts. But yeah, we're not alone in this transition process. So you bet.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for a good job so far. We're putting these together.
Any other questions or comments? Eric, do you think?
I think, well, I
ahead,
have one,
Commissioner.
sorry, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I think the South Fork Crow River One Watershed, One Plan is supposed to be done June of next year, so 2024, I think. But that's on paper. I don't know if it'll get delayed or not, but that's technically when it's supposed to be done.
Well, based on the one, North Fork, One Watershed, One Plan, that's a very ambitious goal.
Yeah.
But we were a pilot, so we had to figure some things out. That leads to the question that I had is, do you think 2 years will be enough? Or I don't suppose we have the ability to request 3 years because Bowser has to approve this.
I do think that 2 years will be enough. Currently, both projects that are ongoing are in the kind of the process of setting the goals, the measurable goals, and then transitioning shortly to then what does that look like? How do we meet those goals? Which is pretty far along in the process. Both of them are using a consultant who now is rather practiced, shall we say, Houston Engineering, who is doing, I would say, the vast majority of these. And so they have a pretty good process and some pretty seasoned staff, which I think does lead to a pretty timely process. So there is a fair amount of fudge factor built into that 2-year request. As Commissioner Anderson noted, we're expecting to be done before then, so this would still allow for some time for extension requests. If the plans take a little longer than they think, we still have time in that window. I think that's why the Bowser Board Conservationists recommended a 2-year request.
Thank you. Commissioner Berg.
Just a comment and a question as well. So, since we're the headwaters for several of these watersheds, there's really some benefits for Candioi County too, that often the watershed plans do look at, you start at the headwaters and work your way down, but you also look at the whole plan as these dollars come about to improve our water quality in these areas. But there's also a carrot at the end of completing our plans that Bowser's often has some dollars available. Is that similar amounts for each watershed plan that Bowser puts out?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Berg. That does vary based on watershed size, et cetera. So they kind of look at the resource and they allocate their money accordingly. That's called watershed-based implementation funding, or WBIF funding. It is non-competitive. So once we get these plans done, one of the benefits is they say, you get this money on a biennial basis and it's for your priorities and your plan. And for the Hawk Creek, that's about $1 million every other year. So that's a lot of money. And we will continue, as long as we keep a good plan, we continue to qualify for that money. And so, yeah. Good.
Anyone else? You bring up a good point, though, being 4 watersheds. In some ways, it would have been simpler if we just still done the political boundaries, because then we would have only had one plan. But we're going to be limited by the resources we have available to pursue those grants. And I'm a little concerned about that right now for what we have available to pursue the rather large amount of resources that are available. And you got to keep in mind that, as you mentioned, being at the top of the watershed, everything we do here, we send down. And there's a cumulative effect. So the more we can do at the top of the watershed, the better off it is for the entire watershed. So the other question I had, how many LGUs are there in each of these, Chippewa and South Fork? That might be an unfair question. I know that at the
significantly more than, our Hawk Creek was a pretty small and nimble unit, 3 different counties with their respective soil and water. So six partners essentially. The Chippewa is probably a dozen. Well, no. Might be, I think 8, so 16 total with the soil and waters, because you go all the way up to Otter Tail, Douglas, Swift, Grant, Candy, Chippewa, Pope. There's quite a few partners in the Chippewa, and the South Fork is pretty large as well. I can't quite remember how many there are.
I think
there.
it's like 9 counties, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that addresses what you were asking.
Well, it kind of does, because that was one of the challenges we faced with the one, again, we were a pilot, so we were trying to figure it out. But the more partners you have, the more challenge it is, because all it takes is 1 or 2 that disagree, and it can really hold up the process a lot. So,
And to what you said a minute ago, Chair, what we're seeing in the North Fork is that Wright County has had the staff and has really pursued some of these funds. I've had some initial conversations with Margaret Johnson about how do we think about staffing and use of these dollars, because there are dollars that are there, and obviously it takes willing landowners, but there has to be staff that can put these projects together and stuff. And Margaret, I think, is already scratching her head a little bit, and we've had some introductory conversations about staff sharing and county across different county lines and stuff, and how we might put ourselves in a position to say, if this is the new way, and if there's all this money out there, how can we make sure that we are part of that, and we see some of those benefits within our
within our boundaries. Because it's going to be a lot to juggle, as you know. One watershed, one plan means one county, 4 plans, whereas it used to be one plan. So it gives and it takes, I guess, a little bit, you could say.
Yeah, and as I understand it, Wright has a pretty good staff or pretty good resources for staffing, and hence they've been quite a bit more successful in some of the other counties in getting projects on the ground from the block grant of One Watershed, One Plan, or North Fork, so.
Yep.
Thank you very much for that background. Have we voted?
No, you have not.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Eric. All right, Mr. Kleindahl. And then we're going to take a break after. Is this a long one? Just asking.
Get 2
We're going to
minutes.
be up there for a half an hour, and we're going to take a break now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Larry Kleinow, Canada County Administrator, here to let you information only regarding a grant, some grants that we're receiving. The grants are called Information on Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Funds from the U.S. Department of Treasury. We were notified in late December that counties were eligible for up to $50,000 in 2022, another $50,000 in 2023. We were notified that we hadn't submitted our request, so we did that at the last week in December. And I'm proud to say that we are now recipients of $50,000 for the 2022 year, and you'll get $50,000 in 2023. These funds can be used for any general use that you'd normally use for anything else. So you as a board are going to have the flexibility to use these funds just like you would use any other your levy dollars. You cannot use them for lobbying, or you can't use them for federal match fundings because they're federal dollars. So I don't know how that will work with broadband, but there's a way to get around that with broadband, and I'll tell you how to do that. So as you know, we received the border-to-border grant for the 4 townships. Besides the ARPA funds that you guys have already approved for that, the $1.3 million to cover that, the county also had committed to provide another $100,000 of county funds for those 4 townships, $25,000 for each one of those townships. And so what you can do is take the money from your right pocket and put it in your left pocket. Take your money from your general funds, pay your $100,000, but you can pay yourself back with these funds. It'll be up to you to decide in the future, but this is some money that we weren't expecting. You're going to take those dollars out of reserves. I know if you do that the way I'm speaking, you'll be just fine, and you can use those funds for other ways, and it just covers your bases. And so,
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
A question. It's really just nice to have all this good news today. Thank you, Mr. Kleindahl. We have then this whole year to make that decision, how to divide those dollars up?
correct.
Okay.
Even on the 2020.
Yep, there's no deadline.
Okay.
We did receive the 2022 funds, and I would imagine early in 2023 you'll receive the second part. And again, you can use them for what you would use for your general funds. You just can't use them for lobbying or for matching grants for federal.
Mr. Chair. And that includes, though, we can use it for administrative costs in as well.
Yes.
The way it sounds, okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Larry, it appears that reporting requirements are not very onerous with this, and just also we can do just about anything with this. If we wanted to do something with affordable housing or childcare, or I mean any you name it, other than that, lobbying. And if we did use it for a project, I see that prevailing wage does not apply in this towards the use of these funds.
Right. The Davis-Bacon does not apply. I would caution you on the housing. If there's federal funds that would be matched in federal funding, some of the programs are federal. I'd caution you to do that because you can't use it for federal matching.
Sure, I just
Yeah.
bring it up because it can be for any area essentially that we have an interest in.
Yep, and I'm just giving you a suggestion, so.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anybody else? You mentioned the $25,000 per township. That was not ARP dollars that?
No, those were levy dollars that we had committed,
So they were in the budget? Okay,
because you're going to take them out of reserves.
all right. All right, that was for information only, so there'll be no action on this item. So thanks, Larry, for that information. We're going to take what time is it? Is it 20 to 10?
Yeah, about
5 minutes? Take a 5-minute recess. I will reconvene the Kennewaga County Board of Commissioners. And our discussion now is with the National Insurance Services update. And Bill, are you going to, Bill Chakut, state your name and who you represent, because we do have possibly have viewers that are watching us and listening to the proceedings here.
I'll back that out.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I was just thinking, it was 2019, the last time I addressed the Board of Commissioners, and then, of course, COVID hit, and that kind of stopped everything for quite a while. But my name is Bill Chakutski. I'm with National Insurance Services. Prior to 2019, I was an independent broker. In 2020, late 1920, I partnered with National Insurance Services. National Insurance Services is located out of Brookfield, Wisconsin. We have an office in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. We are known and we are owned by a national company called Assured Partners. You may have heard of them. They're the 6th largest brokerage in the United States. So with me today, I've got two of my colleagues, Steve Smith, who's a broker consultant like I am, Mari Wagner, who's our account manager, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them as we go. But as we go through this, I just kind of want to give you a brief history of where I've been at with the county, and then I'm going to turn it over to Steve to talk about some things coming up in the future. But I started working with the county in 2001. Wayne Thompson was the administrator then, and Marilyn Johnson was the HR person. And in 2006, when Larry was appointed administrator, then I started working with him as well as that time. Interesting that back then things were much simpler. Rates were much lower, insurance costs were lower, medical costs were lower, and we've come a long way. When I first started working with the county, you had the original traditional health plan, which pretty much meant it was cheap, everything was paid for, low co-pays, prescription drugs were $4.50. Life was good. Well, then the atmosphere changed, costs changed. We're all living longer, a lot of technology. I'll never forget the day I walked in here and introduced a $1,000 deductible to replace the traditional plan, and I thought I was going to get tarred and feathered. It was like, are you kidding me? And today, we've come a long way, and of course now we've got the VIVAs and the HSAs and all those sorts of things. So what we want to talk to you about today is just briefly who we are, what we offer. I want to give you a medical insurance history of kind of where we're at today. Steve's going to then come up and talk to you about what we look at as a team for renewal time when we get the numbers from the insurance carrier to be able to put together a good recommendation for you as a board to look at. And then also talk a little bit about how we go up for bids. And then we'll talk about our recommended next steps. So who we are, as I said, we're with National Insurance Services. I partnered with them in 2019. With me today, as I said, I've got Mari Wagner and Steve Smith. As well, behind the scenes, we've got Piri Guilfoyle and Ashley Vienendahl are also partners and are on our team with us. One of the unique things that I found, and one of the main reasons I partnered with NIS, was when you're an independent broker, you rely on the insurance company to give you the information, and you hope that information is correct. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. You can do funny things with numbers. One of the things that I liked about National Insurance Services is they have their own analytical department. Piri Guilfoyle heads that up. At some point this next year, we'll be introducing Lisa and Connie to him, as well as Kelsey. What that basically means is we have our own underwriting staff. So when we get the numbers from the carriers, then Piri and his team take those, and then they do our own analytics and our own underwriting to make sure we're getting the correct information so that we can give you the best information available. The services that we offer, I'm not going to go through these just because of limited times, but you've got this in your packet. We offer a wide variety of services. Actually, right now, we have pretty much, other than your medical, which is the most expensive, and I'm guessing next to payroll is probably your second or third budget item. because of the number of employees, of course, that you have. But we have a wide arrangement of products. We do offer dental that we have with the county, life, long-term disability, vision. And we talk to all of your employees about all those products and the value of those at open enrollment time to make sure that they, understand what the county has to offer. So you can peruse through those on your leisure. So as far as the medical insurance goes, and I want to take this time to thank Larry for his years of service to the county and his leadership. Under his direction, I feel we've done an excellent job of managing your budget dollars and the products that we're offering to your employees to make sure that you're competitive in the market and you can offer a good benefits package. I've been working with Larry and Connie and Lisa. Every year at open enrollment, we look at, should we stay fully insured? Should we go to self-insured? And it's a financial thing. You hear a lot of chatter right now, I know, about, self-insured, self-insured, self-insured. And that's okay. It works for some groups. It doesn't work for others. So every year at open enrollment, we look at the numbers. And we, as I said, Lisa and Connie and Larry and I have looked at those and said, what makes the most sense? And up until now, it's still made the most sense to stay fully insured. And I'll explain to you what that means, because we are a member of a pool. We're a member of the Southwest West Central Service Cooperative. It's based out of Marshall, Minnesota. They're one of 7 in the state, and they have a Minnesota Healthcare Consortium that they've put together for bidding and pricing and those kind of things. And within that co-op, we're a fully insured group, but we're actually self-funded because they're a self-funded pool. So what that means is our only risk is the premiums that we pay. Now, those premiums are dictated by the carrier, which is the co-op. They use Medica as their third-party administrator. That just started this year. Up until then, they'd use Blue Cross Blue Shield. So when they look at us and they determine what we need for rates, and on the sheet that you're looking at here, we wanted to give you a 7-year history to kind of show you that every year when we looked at these, as I said, we still maintain that fully insured was the best way to go. So when fully insured, what that means is it doesn't matter what your claims do. If they go well beyond your premiums, you're protected because you're in that self-insured pool and their reserves are going to cover that. One of the unusual things that we have going on in our county is we have an unusual amount of high cases. And high case claims are looked at, every company looks at them a little bit differently. Blue Cross looked at $75,000 and above per covered individual. Medical looks at $50,000. At the end of December of 2022 was our first full year with Medica as the carrier for the co-op. We had 23 high case claimants. And
Excuse me a minute.
yes,
23 in Kaneohe County?
in Kaneohe County, yes. For this size of a group, very unusual. That's actually normally a group you might look at dollar-wise now. With claimants, you might look at 70-30, 80-20. We're at about a 60-40 split. So we've got some high cases, and they have to be paid for. Claims are claims, and that's where the reserve dollars come from. So when you look at this sheet here and where I'm going with this history, I just wanted you to be aware of, if you look at the last 7 years on this sheet, thank you, Steve. When you look at the last 7 years, on the left-hand side where it says calculated rate, had we been self-insured, this is what our numbers would have looked like. So over a 7-year period, we would have averaged 10.2% needed increase to pay for our claims. In other words, we'd have to increase our premiums or we'd have to have reserve dollars to take those out of. If you calculate that out each year, that's about $10 million is where we would be at today in premiums. When we started 2017, we were a little over $5 million. When you look at the right-hand side, that's what we actually got for increases from the co-op that we're a member of. So the pool within the co-op, the reserve pool, paid for those high case claimants were the monies that needed to come for that, an average of 3.4%. So when you calculate that out, that comes to where we're at today. Our projected premium for 2023 is $6,551,838. So
when I look at that, and when Larry and Lisa and Connie and I talked about these, and now this year with Mari and Steve, when you look at that, if you calculate it out, that's $4 million, a little over $4.2 million, that had we been self-insured, the county would have had to have had in reserves to pay those. So again, this year, we felt that it just made sense to stay that way. Now, another very good positive thing, Corky, you talked about positive news earlier. Very good positive thing that happened was we negotiated an unprecedented 3-year contract. It's never been done through the co-ops before, with guaranteed rates. So we had guaranteed rates in 2021. We had a -3 reduction. Never had a reduction before. So we saved 3%. Guaranteed rates in 2023, where we just started January 1st, the cap was 6.5%. And what the cap means is they guarantee us that no matter what our claims do, it cannot go over the 6.5. If our claims come in less than that, or they want to use reserve dollars to help us out, they can. Actually, we came in at 5%, so we saved another 1.5 for this year. Our 3rd year of the contract is in 2024, and the guaranteed cap for that year is 9%. So we know Larry is leaving the county in very good hands. You know what you've got for budgeting for this year and for next year. Next year at this time, one of the things that we will be doing with Kelsey and Connie and Lisa is we will be looking at the numbers and trying to determine what we should do in 2025. Because in August of '24 is when we would be looking at going out for bids and deciding, should we stay fully insured? Do we want to go self-insured? And when Steve comes up here, he's going to talk to you about how we look at those numbers and what our numbers right now look like. And right now, based off of our projections, what they will be. So again, just to highlight here before I turn it over to Steve, on the bottom of this page, you can see that, again, we have a 3-year guaranteed contract, -3 in '22, 6.5, which came in at a 5, and now 9% for 2024. So before I turn it over to Steve to come up and talk to you a bit, is there any questions on any of that?
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill, you mentioned the Southwest West Central Reserve pool.
Yeah.
Just can you speak to exactly how that is funded and what the overall health of that pool is? Is there any indication that those dollars may not be there in the future?
Sure. And actually, Mari, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you come up. Mari started with NIS about 2 months before I partnered with them, and she actually was an employee of the Southwest West Central Co-op. So she knows a lot more about them than I do. So I could give you my answer, but being she's here, I'm going to just let her talk to that.
Thank you, Bill. Hi, everyone. My name is Mari Wagner, and yes, I did come from the Southwest West Central Service Cooperative prior to coming to NIS, and I worked with Larry and Lisa and Connie previously before my role here. For that, I worked for the 18-county area and I managed the health insurance pool as well as the wellness program. And as far as the pool was when I left, was very stable. Had very high reserve funds. It was funded adequately. Plus now they are also together with the 7 other cooperatives of the state. Since then, I have not heard anything differently as far as the pool goes. And with the reserves, they manage that every year based off of the advisory committee that they do have and the other members of the pool itself. Any questions on that?
So the funding for this pool comes from, where do the dollars come from, Jen?
It comes from the members of the pool.
Okay.
Yep.
And so this is spread across really the entire state? Are there any cooperatives that are not participants within this
Right
pool?
now, MHC is still divisionalized, so Southwest is still maintaining their whole pool. They just have the protection of MHC as a whole on top of that.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yes, you're welcome.
Related to that, so Southwest, is that just counties or does it include cities and school districts and that?
So right now, it actually does include one school district. I believe it's ACGC. Does that sound right? And then there's 7 other counties, excuse me. And then the smaller cities are more in the small group pool that they created a couple years ago. And anything considered small group is 50 and under.
So to answer the question is largely the money comes from, was it 7 counties and 1 school district?
Correct.
In small cities.
I thought she said they created their own.
Oh, they don't,
The small group it includes a lot of the cities just because they are under that 50 contract.
Great, thanks, Maureen. Yeah, and the co-op out of Marshall actually has 2 pools. One they call their school pool, and then the other one is the cities, counties, other governmental units. We're in the cities, county, other governmental units. One thing I forgot to mention about NAS is we're exclusively working with public sector, and that's been our expertise. So we know public sector, we're good at what we do with them, and we have hundreds and hundreds of clients that some are fully insured, some are self-insured, some are with the co-ops, some are on their own, some are with state programs, some are with PEEP. So we have a lot of groups that have a lot of different health plans. One of the things, Commissioner Gardner, that you asked was the funding. So the premium dollars that the co-ops assess to each group, part of that is administrative fees, and then part of that is the membership fee to belong to that co-op. And that's where so when they're building their reserve funds, it's basically like us being self-insured. If we do well and our premiums are higher than our claims, at the end of the year, we have reserve funds available and those grow. But if we don't, then we have to dip into those. And I want to say the Southwest West Central Service Co-op has got to be close to 300 million in reserves. It's pretty huge. Yeah, and I get asked, I've been asked recently, well, why would the co-op give Candy Ojai County such a good deal? Because it is a good deal. It's and we negotiated that. Part of it was competition. We were bidding the county out against other groups. Blue Cross did not want to lose Candy Ojai County, so they came in with a very good offer, and we have in the business what we call a best and final offer. So when we go out for bids, we tell everybody, give us your best bid, and then we allow them a best and final. We don't share numbers, but we just allow them to do that. Candy Ojai County, quite frankly, is the largest group in the Southwest West Central Co-op. And they simply did not want to see those dollars go away. So they have a big enough group, a big enough reserve that they can afford to keep us on and keep that $6 million coming into their coffers, knowing though that they're probably going to have to pay some of that out in reserves because of our high claims. Now, they also have their own, and one thing they do is collectively throughout the state with all 7 co-ops is they have their own stop loss protection, and they self-insure for that as well. So there's money savings there.
So they're not reinsured in any
Oh, yes, no, but they're self-insured up to, I want to say it's 500,000, and then after that, they reinsure through the carrier that they have. And it's like a high deductible plan when you think about it. If you want to save money in premium, the higher deductible you buy, the lower premium you have, but the more risk you have. Self-insured is kind of the same way.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Anderson.
Mr. Chair, so my question would be, maybe you said it, and sometimes with insurance, my eyes glaze over. But
That's what we're here for, to help you with
know,
that.
So you said we have 23 that were high claims. How does that compare with the rest of the area that we're in? Are there other areas that are high too?
Not that many.
Is that a trend, or is it just kind of an?
I think it's just bad luck, and we'll work our way out of it. But the thing with high claimants, there's protection. That's why you have group coverage.
Okay.
You just can't, and HIPAA laws protect all of that. So, we don't know who they are. We don't care. We do know what the diagnosis is because that's important to know. They're all active cases. So, eventually we'll hope we work our way out of it. But as far as numbers go, we're exceptionally high compared to groups that are our like size.
Okay. And then my other comment would be, I just want to recognize Lisa. She's really helped me with this, because like I said, my eyes glaze over with insurance, and when I do have a question, I go to her, and she's very well informed on any questions. I haven't stumped her yet, I don't think so.
And hopefully, if maybe we should let Steve address us, and then hopefully you're writing your questions down, there'll be more questions.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. Steve?
Good morning, everybody. Steve Smith from NIS. Thank you for the time. Medical insurance is complex. We're going to touch a little bit about how we're running, and then a comparison of if we were to be self-insured today, how would that look? NIS is a very data-driven association. And the reason being is we negotiate on behalf of our clients to underwriters and the carriers. Underwriters don't care about the budget of the county, the taxes of the county, your 3-year, your 5-year, your 6-year outlook. They want you to renew at the highest premium every single year. I know that because I spent my first 20 years at a carrier in the Twin Cities Health Partners. And now I'm on the other side of that fence. And so what we're going to do is look at the data-driven. And why that's important is when we go back to our underwriters at Blue Cross or the co-op, we're using data to argue our position. We're not bringing emotion into it. Well, they can't afford it or they didn't budget. These are the numbers, and they understand that. It's hard to debate when we're having numbers for our facts. So with the medical loss ratio, you're going to learn a little bit about insurance. I apologize. We look at something called an MLR, medical loss ratio. It's a simple underwriting term of what dollars did the county pay, and that's both employee and employer dollars, and what did the co-op pay out? Simple math. Dollars in, claims, premiums, prescriptions, medical care, deductibles, everything going out. Normally, an underwriter and a carrier would like an 85% loss ratio. That leaves about 15% to pay taxes, pay their staff, pay logistics, SPDs, ID cards, disease managers, things like that. Over the last 12 months, the county is running at 110%. The prior 12 months, so underwriters always look at the most recent 24 months of data. We look at the most recent 12 and then an older 12 months. The most recent 12 months is running at 110%. They're losing money on this. That's not surprising. As a business decision, they put out some caps that were very aggressive to keep our business. The prior 12 months was 103%.
Can I stop you for just a second?
Yes.
When you said they wanted to keep our business, are you referring to the Southwest Service Cooperative?
Correct. Yes. So the previous year was about the most competitive I've ever seen in my lifetime. When the co-op switched from Blue Cross as their carrier to Medica, it created a storm that carriers wanted that piece of business. Whether it be Blue Cross wanting the business, because you've had them for many, many years, or Medica being part of the co-op, you wanted the business. So groups the co-op had to make a business decision, what it's going to take to keep their business. The MLR, there's another verbiage real quick, the MLR minus admin. So we've got claims that come, or we got our premiums that come in from the county, but before any dollars are paid from the co-op, they have staff, they have buildings, they have websites, they have taxes they have to pay. So there's really before, if we pay $100 in premium, there's not $100 to pay claims right away. There's really about $85 left. So when we look at MLR minus admin, over the last 12 months, the plan is running at about 135%. Ideally, you want to run on under 100%. That means they're paying all their claims, they're paying their taxes, they're paying their staff, there's a little bit money left over. So they're losing money on us. That's not surprising. So with the high claimant information of the information I'm going to go over, we do have high claimants going on that Bill mentioned. Using a $200,000 pooling level, we would have normally pooled out $560,000 in claim costs would be removed. If we did that, the MLR, medical loss ratio, would go down to 101%. For this real recap, we're not pooling out any dollars. For the claims, I'm not going to go into detail. We would at the insurance committee, but you can see from the most recent data is December 21st to November 22. Again, we have the 110% loss ratio on the bottom and 135% MLR minus, including admin. The oldest 12 months is listed there as well, December of 2020 through November of 21. We had 103% loss ratio and 125% MLR minus admin. It's a lot of numbers. I'm going through them very quickly to give a summary. So what are we going to do with this data? We're actually going to run through the renewal, which we did. We're going to run through the data that we have today. How do we look in 2024? So we're going to look at that most recent 24 months. We are going to pool out dollars if it's above $200,000. We're going to use, from a revenue standpoint, 365 employees and 769 members. And how we look at that, we underwrite basically just like the cooperative is going to underwrite. Going to take the data. Our formula is calling for a 16.7% increase using the current data for 2024, next year. Now, we're not getting a 16.7%. We have a rate cap of 9%, correct? Which is good. What this means, and what normally does, and when we do multiple year rate caps, we fall behind where the formula is calling each and every year. The cooperative usually never gives rate caps. I work with Clay County. I work with Crow Wing County. A year ago, they were in the same position that you guys were in. They both went to Blue Cross Direct with multiple year rate caps. The Southwest Service Co-op decided not to lose them and offered rate caps to match that fully insured rate more than likely. But all of those groups are underfunded currently. They're not getting what the formula is calling for. So they're all potentially looking at a self-insured model in 2025. They're thinking about that. They're educating their committees, educating their boards. So with that, we looked at, from a model standpoint and a renewal, is what if we were self-insured? How would that look like? So from looking at the fully insured versus self-insured model, we put a lot of data in there. We have the 24 months of data. We put demographics, network and provider contracting, pharmacy costs, plan designs, specific and aggregate premiums, and I'm probably getting a little bit into the weeds of self-insuring. Specific stop loss protects us against one person having a really high claimant, and aggregate stop loss protects against a whole group having a lot of claimants. So how that looks from a model here, and I want to just highlight a little bit. The fully insured premium is $6,551,000. Going through 1,000 scenarios. So the computer model goes through 1,000 different models based on our demographics, our stop loss. We come out in the green. If a $200,000 stop loss, we lose $1 million compared to that fully insured rate, or $100,000, $891,000. The probability of outperforming fully insured is 7.4% or 5.8%. And this is actually getting a self-insured quote again for 2024. NIS would not recommend self-insuring based on this data today. If those outperforming numbers were in the 80 to 90%, we'd have an entirely different conversation. This analysis right here does also not include any pre-funding of any accounts for being self-insured. So for example, Clay County is actually setting some money aside each and every year, each and every quarter, to have a pot of money. If they do go self-insured in 2025, there's money to begin paying claims right away. So overall, the probability of going self-insured is not good today, but this is something we look at every single year. Fully insured, self-insured, with the cooperative. The Southwest Service is not the only cooperative in the state that's self-insured. We have Sourcewell up in Staples. PEEP is a cooperative. And then obviously the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium that we're part of. Okay, I'm going to leave it up to Bill here.
Thanks, Steve. One thing I forgot to mention too, that over the last probably, 4 years, 5 years, as Larry and Connie and Lisa and I have been talking about this, Larry has been setting aside money for a reserve, looking at the day that the county can go self-funded. So we've got a lot of good things in place. We've got the 3-year guarantee, so we know where we're going to be. It gives us time to reestablish an insurance committee. And then as well, I'm going to encourage you as a board to encourage your new administrator, Kelsey Baker, to continue to fund those reserves. And Larry will talk to you at some point about that and how he's been doing that. Because when, as Steve just said, when things do change, and it makes more sense for us to go self-insured, it'll certainly be beneficial to have that reserve fund there in case of an oops. You know, we're all a high claimant just waiting to happen. None of us knows who it's going to happen to next. And again, that's why you have group health care. So we'll take questions, but before we do, I just want to tell you that this is our recommended steps. Meet with the new administrator in April. We thought we'd give Ms. Baker time to get settled in, and then I'll work through Connie and Lisa to set up some dates for us to come in and get her up to speed. We'd like to get the insurance committee active and going again. Typically in the past, we've had department heads and union members on that committee. I would like to ask 2 of you board members to be on that insurance committee. So if you could start thinking about who would want to do that. One of the things that we are strong on, and we ask insurance committee members to please, think about this before you agree to join. And that is, you can't look at your individual situation. You got to look at the big picture. You got to look at what's best for the county and its employees and the taxpayers that are paying that bill. Too many times in the past, the only real issue we've ever had in any of our groups with an insurance committee is if you get somebody on there that has an individual beef and they want to try and change that, it doesn't work that way. So we'll go through all that as we get further down the road. Secondly, then we want to set up that insurance committee, as I just said, with 2 board members. And then at some point, probably, I don't know, maybe mid-year or so, we'll set up a meeting with that insurance committee to have our director of analytics, Perry Guilfoyle, come in. And then you'll be absolutely baffled because this guy, he's good at what he does. He knows the numbers. He knows the business. And he's probably the main person that gives Steve and I the support to negotiate with these carriers, because it's based off of factual data that he can run for us. So with that, again, I want to thank Larry. Thank you for your years of service. It's been a great pleasure working with you. You've got a good team here with Connie and Lisa, and we're working with you all going forward in 23 and into 24. And then at that point, we'll see what's in the future for us. So questions?
Well, first of all, I thank you for coming in. And this all seems rather new to me, and I know with the interruption of COVID and perhaps when you were running an independent agency, it was different. But so it's a lot has been thrown at us here in the last 20 minutes. And so I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and I'll open up the floor to commissioners that have questions.
Mr. Chair, well, first off, I want to thank you, Bill. You've been around for a long time. You're a straight shooter, and you mentioned Administrator Kleindahl's input as well as the staff and Connie and Lisa, and we've done well, I think, over the years, and it's very, very positive. I did have a question. I was looking at the administrative costs going back. Was that roughly 20 to 25%, right? Am I correct? If I just kind of generally looked at the administrative costs for these recent plans?
I'm not sure which.
And again, that's maybe not really even an important question at this point.
Yeah, typically it runs about 15%.
Okay.
And it kind of depends on, variable factors, but that's part of what we negotiate as well.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, when you look at self-insured, there's only 3 things to negotiate. It's claims or claims. You're going to pay those.
Yeah. So
you negotiate the administrative rates that the carrier is going to charge, the stop loss protection, which includes how much of a stop loss do you want.
Mm-hmm.
If you only take a $75,000, you're going to pay a higher premium. If you take a $200,000, you're going to pay a lower premium. And then the aggregate stop loss level that Steve had talked about to cover the whole picture. So it's really those 3 things that you're negotiating.
Okay.
Yep.
Administrator Kleindl.
So maybe you want to give the board an update how you guys do open enrollment and how successful our county employees have been at attending to open enrollment and the process that we do to make sure our employees are aware of what's going on. Lisa and Connie and you work really hard to get open enrollment and information to our employees.
Yeah, and prior to COVID, we had by far, in my opinion, in the groups I work with, and that's over 30, that Candioi County has always had great participation. Probably at least 70 to 80% of the employees show up for that.
I think we were told we don't have a choice.
That was,
Well,
that's true, that was.
well, Larry has a subtle way. Larry has a subtle way of kind of mandating that.
I changed that though.
Yeah, he did. And then,
Forgot to tell me.
unfortunately, when COVID hit, that changed everything, and we went to the virtual world. But I got to tell you, we're doing everything we possibly can to get back to face-to-face open enrollments. When I'm presenting like this and people are watching on the screen, they're doing other things, and they're not, in concentration. Where when you have them there, one of the things that I pride myself on, and again, it's because Larry and his staff, not only do we do open enrollment meetings, but then we'll be here for 2 or 3 or 4 days, whatever they need to do individual meetings with your employees. Sometimes a lot of people don't like to talk about, and they shouldn't talk about their issues in public, but to have that opportunity to sit down with one of us one-on-one, particularly when it comes to the complication of high deductibles, the VEBA medical savings account, the health savings, they all intertwine and intermix, but they can be very confusing. So we offer that. This last year, we tried something new. We did an open enrollment benefits fair at the same time, and I believe we're going to do that again next year. It gave the employees an opportunity to come in and see the vendors. We were all downstairs. We all had our own little tables set up so employees could, come at their leisure. And that worked out very well. So certainly, we hope we're never going to have to go back to all virtual again. And our intent is to keep those, as well as the insurance committee meetings as well, keep those in person.
Well, I can attest to the individual service 2 years ago or 3 years ago it was when I had come of age for Medicare, and I was thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to go on Medicare, and now we only have to pay for my wife's insurance, and Bill ran the numbers for us and demonstrated to me that it was cheaper for me to continue on the county's plan than to start collecting Medicare because of my wife's COBRA payment would have been larger than what our combined payment was. But I think I would be perhaps the worst person on this board to be part of that committee because of some personal beefs that, and one of them I listened to on TV 10 minutes before I left for this meeting this morning. And it has to do with how healthcare providers code and insurance companies. And I'll use a personal example if I may. I had a dermatology procedure done relatively late in the year. Was diagnosed in July, couldn't get in to do the procedure until October, and then there was an abrasion that needed to be done follow-up. Well, now they want to have a follow-up look at it. It's going to cost me $300 and some because it flipped over the calendar year. It's like, I'm not going to this appointment. I'm not going to spend $300. And our physicals are basically the same thing. If I go in there and talk about my high blood pressure, my cholesterol, or being overweight, I'm going to automatically get an extra bill from the healthcare provider, which is probably not covered by Medica. And so it's like, I think I'm going to skip my physical this year, and I'll just do one every 2 years. Well, then the threat that's over your head is that your doctor probably isn't going to prescribe your high blood pressure medicine until you come back in for a visit. It is frustrating, terribly frustrating.
Yeah, and
I can relate to you. And you can ask Lisa. It's frustrating.
Lisa deals with that every day, so she knows what's, yeah. And just so you know, okay, this won't mean anything to really other than Larry and Roger, but I just have to say it, Roger. So I have been working very hard to get chocolate and wine as a deductible expense, but they still will not allow it. And the joke is there, at the last time I presented to the board, that was one of the questions that Roger jokingly asked me, is if he could turn that in on his Weber HSA, and I said, I don't think so.
Well, there was
Good
some
for you,
report
though.
that red wine and dark chocolate were
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But I'm serious about that frustration
it
and,
is.
and earlier, so going back to some of the questions that I was writing down is, and in a couple of cases, as we're learning that such and such wasn't going to get covered, I would hear quite often that Blue Cross is the gold standard, and people would say, and so my question is, who is they when considering, because it was reported that they consider between Blue Cross and Medica. Is that the Southwest Service Cooperative that decides who they is?
A bid, yes.
Or who gets the businesses
Yeah,
through Medicare or
they
for
put
this
it out for
contract
bids.
period?
Yeah, and that's a good question, Roger. And years ago, in 2020 or 2001, when I first started working with the county, Blue Cross was the only carrier in outstate Minnesota. None of the other carriers, I don't think they thought there were people out here. I mean, Blue Cross had the best network, the best pricing. Other carriers weren't even competitive. That's all changed in the last 20 years. They're all metro-based, including, I heard you mention earlier, United Healthcare. Up until 2 years ago, the state of Minnesota didn't allow them to sell in Minnesota because they're a for-profit company. That's finally changed, so now they're a player on the market. They've all got, now, there's still a difference in the networks, and one of the things that we do in the RFP process is make sure we're looking at what are those discounts in those networks. Because they might be offering a cheaper price, but if they're not getting as good, and what I mean by that is when you go to the doctor and you get that EOB, that explanation of benefits, tells you what the charge was and then what the insurance is going to pay and what you have to pay, that's all negotiated between those carriers and the doctors and the hospitals. And that's another part of what we make sure we're watching out for when we do the RFPs.
Bill, you may want to talk about every 3 years with county, we're required to go for bids, and so is the co-op. So
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, good point. And so being we're a member of the co-op, we do not have to go out for bids because they do. They have to go out for bids every 5 years. They do it every 4. And that's to make sure they're being competitive. But in the world today, it's real common for us to look every 3 years because things change. So if we get as an example, when we come up to, in 2024, a year from now, when we're starting to look at, okay, this is our last year of our guaranteed rates, we're going to start looking because the co-op may not have the best deal. They may, but they may not. So we will go out for bids again that year in 2024 to look at 2025. And I can guarantee you that now that the cat's out of the bag, and what I mean by that is these carriers are starting to offer multiple year, you can be assured that we're going to be aggressive at not just 3 years, but going after 4 year and 5 year to try and negotiate that. Because the longer commitment, and that, even if we go self-insured, we would do that because we'll guarantee those administrative rates, the stop loss rates, those kind of things.
When you say even if we go self-insured, who is we?
We as Candioi County.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, as I stand here, I consider myself a part of that county, and when I say we in front of you, that means Candioi County.
So then how would NIS be involved in, if the board decided or at some point would become self-insured?
So we would remain your brokers just like we are today, offering the same services. It would just be a difference of the finances. And again, our underwriters, Piri and his team, each year would look at that to help you understand. If you're underfunded, we're going to let you know that. You're going to have to figure out how to get funds in there. If you're overfunded, one of the dangers, quite frankly, of self-insured is as your reserve grows, and it may not, but some groups aren't able to manage those reserves on their own. They need help with that. It's real easy when you got $1 million sitting in reserve to say, oh, wow, let's give everybody a Christmas present and not have premiums for December. And that sucks $500,000 right out of your reserve. Now you got a high case come in January, what do you do? So we'll help manage that whole process too, with our expertise and help you with that.
He also put the information together for the bids.
We do all the bid.
All that stuff
Yeah.
that we don't know how to do.
Right. We do all the bid packets. We do put the ad in the paper. We negotiate with the carriers. We're making sure that we're comparing apples to apples. Sometimes carriers will try and laser out high claimants. We won't allow that to happen. Can happen, but you have to watch for that.
Steve, you got a question?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair?
Berg?
Yeah, excellent overview. This is the best understanding I've gotten so far. And as a general, as a whole board, I don't think we need to get too far into the weeds, but insurance is so complicated, we need to get down a little bit to find out how this all works. And this is very helpful.
Good.
And your experience with Canyon County is remarkable.
Thank you. And two of you will be getting into those weeds with us.
Yes, I know that. And
You have to pick which two.
Process of elimination. Where
Roger's out. We don't
lowest
have
number of beefs.
But,
Were you done?
yes, I'm done.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Yeah, so I just want to say, I think this insurance is really a good deal, overall. I know you have complaints, but for me, it's been a really.
Wait till you're 68.
Before this, I used to have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it was a $10,000 deductible, and then they finally said, we're not, going after private people in Minnesota anymore. So then they actually booted me out, and then they had to scramble and find insurance. But my question then is, so the reason why the competitive bids are there is because they want to get the 18 county area. I mean, they're losing money.
In the co-op?
Yeah, they're losing money by taking Candioi as part of it, but overall, they're hoping that they can make a profit.
Right.
And that's why they're competing. It is.
Yep, and they know that this is a short, it's not going to last forever. Groups have high cases, that they do. The co-op is not any different than any other carrier. The more they have, the more the risk is spread out overall. And, to lose, they've lost some groups. They've gained some groups. PEEP was very aggressive a few years ago, and they were taking groups away, and Steve and I have groups with PEEP, and now PEEP flipped the other way, and now we're scrambling to get groups out of PEEP because they had 50% increases this year. So that's what we do. We watch out for that for you. But yeah, overall, the pool knows the more lives they can have in that pool, the better off they are.
So,
Because it didn't really sound like a good plan for them to be losing
Right.
money on Canyon County, but overall, they're
Yeah, but
hopefully-
even with that $6 million is a lot of money to pull out of, so they know that they're gonna have to help us, but they know eventually if they're good to us and they can keep us, that will, because there's been, if you go beyond the 7 years back, there's years where we've been very helpful. We paid way more in premium than we did in claims, so it goes both ways.
So I think you mentioned $300 million in reserves, or
Well, don't quote me on that, but I think they're around that mark. Yeah,
give or take.
yeah.
So, as entities have left the co-op
Right.
and maybe stayed away, that means they left whatever they put in
Yep.
that reserve
Yep.
behind.
That
Correct?
debt's gone, so they can't come back to you. So, and that's why they're very protective of that, because they have to pay that run-out debt. The claims can linger on for 3-4 months. And, whatever, when you leave and you're no longer paying your premium, that reserve still has to cover whatever debt there, and that's a state law. Any self-insured group has to be able to cover, their debt. And that's why you have the reserve dollars.
So, Sourcewell versus Southwest.
Yep.
Does a county like Canyon County or a company like you,
I'll let Steve
do you say,
speak to that.
well, you know what, I think Sourcewell's got a better plan for the next 5 years. Let's look at Sourcewell versus Southwest.
I would say from a network standpoint, almost all the carriers are very similar now. From Blue Cross to Medica, Sourcewell uses Health Partners as their partner for administration and discounts and networks. They're very competitive in the public sector as well.
Health Partners, excuse me, that's the other side of United Health Group.
It is not.
Okay.
So United Healthcare is based in Minnetonka.
Optum and,
Correct. The world's biggest insurance company. And that's why Bill mentioned they used to never be able to do business here. Now they are. And then, United Healthcare purchased another larger cooperative called Preferred One this past year. So we have one less carrier to bid your plan out to. Health Partners, original HMO back in the day, they're based in Bloomington. They're a little bit different from a provider standpoint. They're a care provider, So they own like Methodist Hospital and Park Nicollet and Hutchinson Medical Center and Osceola in Wisconsin, but they're also an insurance company. So from an insurance standpoint, they work with Sourcewell, and it's their network, their customer service, their disease managers. So just another option for us. We have about 8 different companies to choose from. Some new players like United Healthcare, and then some ones like Health Partners and Blue Cross that have been around for many, many years.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Does Prime West play into this at all as a provider?
Well, Prime West developed their own insurance pool called Prime Health. And they're in their 6th year now of that. They're a pooled group. The difference with them is you have to sign a 5-year commitment. And you have to pay money to join that. That 5-year commitment in today's world is pretty tough to swallow. But they are an active, and we could get a bid from them. But again, the danger is, 5 years. Yeah, they are for smaller counties. Thank you, Steve. And they recently lost, there's a few counties that left when they came to their 5-year agreement. But yeah, they would be a player as well. And don't confuse Prime West.
I know, it's two
Is
separate.
totally different, very healthy, very well funded. They've got the reserves. They developed Prime Health, which is different. It's managed differently. It has its own reserves. It's a whole different program.
Thank you for that distinction. Larry?
So just, Bill had mentioned about us building reserves for the future. Several years ago, when we were going out for bids and before the co-op came back, we started looking at what it would need for us to go self-insured and what the risk pool was and what it was going to cost. So we worked with counties like size of us to start figuring out what kind of dollars we needed in our pool if we were going to go on our own. So like everything else we've done in this county, we start doing long-term planning. And so we do have funds that we're taking out of each year's from left over from insurance, where people drop out of insurance or we budget for and then they dropped and went, their significant other got insurance somewhere else. And so we had budget for it. So we keep those dollars in and we've been building that reserve. And so we know that the goal is to try to get a couple of $1 million in that reserve. So in 2024 or 25, you're ready if you have that flexibility if you want to, instead of trying to just pull it out of your reserves. So now we're building for that, and it'll be up to you guys to continue to do that, but we're halfway there, over halfway there.
Good.
Well, it's been quite a discussion.
Yes,
and
very
it
good.
may not be done if I see any hands go up here, but Steven's hanging on to his. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the presentation. I think it's helped me at least, and it sounds like it's helped others to understand the whole process. And I think some of my beefs are probably better handled at the legislature, congressional level than they are at the local level.
Okay, thank
With that,
you.
I'll thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, everybody.
safe travels home if the roads are still icy. All right, I think with the exception of report outs and updates, that brings us to the end of our agenda today. I'll remind you that we're back here at 1:30 as the Drainage Authority for a public hearing. But with that, I asked you recently, very recently, we were at West Central Mental Health the other day, and instead of enumerating the number of meetings that we've gone to, and now it's like 3 meetings ago, because we haven't reported out in a while, if you might select one of the meetings that you feel like might have been the most important and report on that particular meeting. I'll go first, so you can give a little thought to, what you're going to go with. It is not one of my committee meetings, but about 3 weeks ago, maybe it's more than that now, Larry had brought it up the previous meeting about, is anybody going to a meeting that was held in St. Cloud, at St. Cloud State University regarding EMS and local ambulances. And so I was able to get that in my schedule. And It is something that I think we should be paying attention to. I think maybe AMC should be paying attention to. But our local ambulances, and this is particularly important in small communities where you don't have a Centricare ambulance, but you have the volunteer ambulance like Sunburg and New London, and I don't know,
Lake
Lake
Lillian.
Lillian. They're getting their butts handed to them financially, and largely because they are not reimbursed for many of the claims. I think the Lakes Area Review did a very nice article on the challenges that New London Ambulance has. For example, Bethesda's the new assisted living facility in New London. When somebody falls, we've been trained to call 911, right? If somebody fell down, so you call 911. By the time the ambulance gets out there and does I think they call them a pickup, or maybe, no, it's a different term, for getting somebody back in their chair or back in their bed or whatever, usually it's done by the time they get there because staff took care of it. They don't get paid a nickel for that. Or if they go out to an accident at the corner of Three Sisters and it's a minor fender bender and they don't transport anybody, they don't get paid a nickel if they don't do a transport. So they have a lot of work to do, and I think from a legislative perspective, I talked to the executive director who lives way up in northwestern Minnesota. He felt like he had everything under control, but I think it would be a great opportunity for the Association of Minnesota Counties, the League of Minnesota Cities, and Minnesota Township Association. That's my report out. And I don't care who wants to go next. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to piggyback on that, recently, about 6 weeks ago or so, had a conversation with the folks who run some of the air ambulance services, and they talked about how about 70% of the work that they do is not reimbursed. So that's also an area that if you're going to bring this up at AMC, it might be worth having that same conversation as well, because of course we have a strong air ambulance service out in this region, but the long-term viability might not be there as well. But certainly for the local EMS as well.
Thank you. You get to go next, being you.
Absolutely, thank you. One of the things that I just wanted to bring up real briefly was I'll be meeting soon with the Candy, Ohio County Housing Trust Steering Team. So this is a work group that's put together to start talking about what it might look like in the way of public-private partnerships if we do establish a housing trust fund. What those collaborations may or may not look like. And to that end, I think it would be helpful for us to schedule a work session to kind of discuss the mission and funding of that trust fund, which the purpose for which is to enhance affordable housing and preserving housing stock across the entire county. I think it's really important for us to be able to work on that basis. All of our smaller towns and cities have housing stock that people, they're going to need help with. We have one that we're looking at here in town right now that may or may not be a candidate for rehabilitation and may or may not be a candidate for any potential housing trust fund. But it's just one example of all of the relatively dilapidated housing and outdated housing that I think it'd be cheaper overall to save that housing stock as opposed to tearing down and replacing it with housing that most people cannot afford. So that's the item that I wanted to bring up. I did also want to mention briefly that next week I will be part of a panel presenting at the AMC New Commissioner Conference on work-life balance. So I'll be enjoying that session as well.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I just would suggest that your conversation regarding housing trust fund might almost warrant the kind of explanation we got today on insurance, because Dwayne Anderson's comment, my eyes kind of glaze over with all of that, so.
Mr. Chair, just follow up on Commissioner Gardner's comment about a work session. And I think part of that would be, we'd add on, just really review some of the ARPA funds as well, and what we have left, and just touch on that too. And we could have a work session in the next couple months or so.
Yep. You're up next because you raised your hand.
Well, I'm a slow learner sometimes, I guess. Okay, I can't. Okay, I'm up next, and I got the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just glaze over three things at this point. The CCT, Community Transit, they had their audit, and they had a clean audit, so that's a clean opinion, and that's very positive. And they just ordered another new bus, and I should leave some stuff for you to share, but
Talk about it, 'cause
yeah, we ordered another new bus. Unfortunately, the buses are not coming. The buses are high mileage, and we're really struggling. And we had to spend a lot of dollars just to repair a bus that shouldn't have been repaired, just to keep something going. And I'm having a hard time yet, like everybody else, finding bus drivers. And otherwise, there is a need out there, and we're not running as many routes as we want to. Just a date saver for PAC4 for families and the Brain Conference. And everybody knows the annual Brain Conference that started many years ago. And it's a chance to have many different breakout sessions and knowledge about children and brain health and children issues. And the Brain Conference is going to be on April 20th from 3:30 to 8:30, and there's going to be a main speaker as well. More information come out, but if you're interested in PAC4 for Families Brain Conference, and that's been a big hit every year, and it's going to again be at the Wilmer Senior High School. And then a quick update on Prime West. I attended my first meeting there, and the good news is that Prime West had estimated, how many people might be enrolling in the program now. And it came out that the enrollment is way ahead than they expected. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed that it goes that way, because that makes it financially better for the county going in that direction. So, and I think I'll better just pass it on to somebody else.
And I don't care, one of the Andersons.
I'll go next. I guess the one thing I want to bring up, I went to the tourism meeting just after our last meeting. Really interesting to me. It's things that I guess I never thought about, but we have great things that we should really be taking advantage of in the winter. I know some people love to go south because it's warm, but I think in our county we have great things. Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center has rentals and available times to go out and do cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, riding fat bikes, and they have a lot of different programming out there that is really a good way to get out and enjoy nature. And the other thing that's going on in our county right now is Spicer is having their Winterfest. So there's a lot of different events coming up for that, and important things that people want to enjoy time outside when it's warm yet, before we get back to our 20 below weather again. I think we're going to have a great opportunity to do that. So them were just a couple of things that were kind of highlights of what's going on in our county. But there's a lot of other things, for in the winter, fishing tournaments and different things that are going on around the county too. So take time and look on their website and enjoy some of the winter activities that are going on. Be a great deal.
Including a cribbage tournament on February 19th.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson,
All right.
Wayne Anderson.
All right. So I was just going to touch on a couple things. So get back to that community transit. We have 7 buses that are still supposed to be coming in. We're going to order another one. And they've been on order since 2020, and they told us at the meeting that we will not be getting any buses this year, because that's what they were told, not by our choice. And we have several buses that have at least 240,000 miles on them. And they normally, under normal conditions, they trade in, they'll order a bus when the bus gets at about 150,000 miles, and they don't, then they might use it as a reserve bus. But we've got some that, they're past the time that we normally would have them. But anyway, so hopefully things get back to normal soon, but it won't be this year, I guess, with that. The other thing is in December, I went to a couple ribbon cutting ceremonies, and it was for broadband, and I was out in Prindsburg with the Arvig project. and then also up in Howick with Vibrant. And so there are a couple success stories. We are getting high-speed internet in a couple locations. They're, smaller locations. But it's kind of encouraging to see that we're accomplishing some of our goals with getting, broadband countywide. There's more that needs to be done. What makes me nervous is that even though we're county commissioners, and we say we need high-speed internet for our areas, a lot of government entities don't believe us. They want to have verification that comes with people writing letters of support that they want to have broadband or high-speed internet brought into their area. And so I encourage people, if anybody is still listening to us, that they would contact the Economic Development Commission and then maybe contact Sarah Swedberg, and she can maybe help them write a letter of support and get that to them so they have that on file, so they can get the ball rolling on some of these grant dollars that are available now.
Thank you. To add on to that, there are going to be 2 more applications for border-to-border grant. I think the deadline's on March 23rd or something like that. So keeping our fingers crossed, Colfax Township would be one of them included in that. And I think Riverwood Circle, is now, Mark Bashan emailed me this morning and said he heard that they were charter is done up in Riverwood Circle. And I got a text message out to somebody to confirm it for me, but I haven't heard back. Larry?
Just have 2 things. Office of Broadband is having a webinar workshop on January 25th. You can join it. Or you can go in person at Mystic Lake, but it's an all-day thing. But I'll send this email to you. You don't have to attend the whole day, but it'll give you some great background information. It'll tell what the broadband committees around the state and rural areas are working on, and really will help clarify you in detail about that information. So that's on January 25th. It goes from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30. Again, I know because of your schedules, unlikely can do the whole thing, but if you can pick and choose and kind of look at that, I think that'd be great. Just want to also give you an update regarding our county recorder's office. You probably heard some stuff going back and forth. Our county recorder, as I stated at the last board meeting, did turn in her retirement notice. And the last day in the office is this Friday. Since that time, the deputy recorder also is put her notice in for retirement. Last day in the office is January 27th. Both will be done, technically done on March 3rd. So in the meantime, our human resource director has been working with the other departments downtown to figure out how do we cover that. We're looking for an interim staff person to help cover it until we can figure out what the county wants to do on that process. And I've had conversations with the chair and the vice chair, just kind of figure out how do we hold this together until we can come up with a plan to do that. And so that's where things are at. Right now, we do have an employee that will take the interim coverage, and then we're also asking Mark Thompson to help out in the supervision piece of it. And so if you're wondering what's kind of going on down there, that's what's taking place. The chair and the vice chair have been informed of what's taking place. That's all I have.
And then I know we kind of probably getting anxious to go now, but calendar events, we've got the legislative conference in St. Paul on, help me out, somebody, February 21st?
22nd.
Yep.
And then the week before that is, if somebody is considering, is the NACO legislative conference, which I am considering going simply because we have 2 federal grants for the Highway 55 overpass bridge. And they kind of expect you to go down and advocate on behalf of the grant applications. So something we would need to consider.
Mr. Chair, I think you would be an excellent person to be attending.
Well, I'm not going alone. I would say that before, if we have to pick one, Public Works Director Oden should be there because he can talk the language.
Both of you, if you could.
Any other calendar things? Then I will adjourn the meeting.
back at 1:30.
Okay. Natural